Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Mix Tank Live. I will be hosting today. My name is Mark Abrams, and if you have never seen the stream before, we're here for what's called Mix Tank on Puremix.net. Mix Tank, you can think of like a think tank for your mixes. It's where you can upload your mixes, and the Puremix community members will go in and they can drop comments on a timeline and try to help you out with your music. So anything that you're struggling with, everybody's there to help out. Every Monday, or every other Monday, I should say, I go live and I review mixes right here on the channel, and the YouTube chat chimes in to help me out. So we might as well jump right in. We're going to go till about 4:30 today and try to get to as many mixes as we can. A couple little housekeeping things before we go live. This Friday, we have what's called a Mix Fix live stream with Fab DuPont, and that's available to the public. It's going to be broadcast right here on the Puremix.net YouTube channel. And that is where Fab DuPont opens up a session sent in by a Puremix Pro member, and he mixes it live on the air, answering your questions as he goes. So that's an amazing live stream, and it's happening this Friday, 2:30 p.m. So don't miss that. Ring the bell down there, do all the subscription stuff, all that YouTube stuff. If you guys are joining us over on Facebook, our YouTube chat that you'll see in the stream over here on the side is coming from YouTube. Yeah, so you can join in the chat over at YouTube. And if you're on Twitch, same thing. We'll see all your comments over on the YouTube side, but feel free to stay on the platform of choice. So one other thing, we have our Black Friday sale coming up, and that is starting next Friday. Will be our infamous Black Friday sale where you get to join Puremix for a discounted amount off. And if you're a current pro member and you need to re-up your subscription, that's the time to do it. So Black Friday sale starts next Friday. And as a reminder, you guys get access to all the plugins on Process.audio and Mixup. You get that service as well, which is amazing for sending out your mixes to your team. Everybody can drop time-stamped comments. You guys can log in and check all that out. There's a great plugin for it too. And don't forget that we just released Spice Rack, our new plugin at Process.audio. Pro members have free access to it. You guys can check it out, Process.audio. It's an amazing creative distortion plugin, and I'm going to be featuring it next Monday on the first live stream of the Great Big Plugin Show. So that is a plugin show that we've had on our YouTube channel in the past that I've hosted, and we're turning it into a live stream. That's going to be every other Monday starting next Monday. So I'll be here every Monday from now until the foreseeable future. One Monday will be Mix Tank. The next Monday will be the Great Big Plugin Show. And we've chosen to do this in a live stream format because we thought it'd be fun. Instead of just doing the YouTube channel kind of thing where we just put the video up, we thought it'd be cool to incorporate the live audience. And basically, as I'm reviewing the plugin, you guys will be able to comment in the chat and be like, oh, I want to hear it on drums, or, you know, crank up the distortion knob to 11, which we should all do. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be a live streamed plugin review show. From time to time, we'll also do some hardware in there. I've got some things planned with a company called Audioscape, which is amazing. You should check them out. So we'll do plugins, we'll do hardware, we'll do all kinds of things. So we'll also be looking for your requests for plugins to review. So if you have any, put them in the chat now. That'd be awesome. But yeah, we're going to start off next Monday. We're going to take a look at Spice Rack and go through it, and you guys will be able to yell at me to turn it up and level match and all that kind of stuff. So should be a good time. But today we are here for Mix Tank. So this is Mix Tank for the unfamiliar, and I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger for you guys to be able to see it. There we go. All right, so over on the left, you'll see I have a whole bunch of submitted mixes from the pro member community. And then in the center, I have a timeline. So as you go through on the timeline, people can drop their timestamped comments, and then it would show up where it says no feedback yet. We would see a bunch of comments there. For example, if I click on one of these, you can see that some people have already left some comments to kind of discussing and leaving some helpful critiques. Over on the far right, we have some information about the mix that's submitted. So we know the user's name, we know the level that they're at, the track status, which is very important. Sometimes this will say early mix or rough mix. And then other times like this one, it'll say master on it, where it's like, this is the complete final production, and I'm looking for feedback on it. And then they'll leave a little bit of a blurb about something that they might be struggling with, or, you know, what they would like to see feedback on. While we're doing this, I'm going to kick this off by using my draw a track button in the upper left. That's going to draw a track at random for me, and I'll comment on that one. But then I really like to try to get to everybody that takes the time to show up in these live streams. So if you're here, you're a pro member, and you've submitted a mix, please let me know your username and the name of the song in the comments, and I'll try to get to it on the stream today. So without further ado, let's draw a track and jump right in. So our first track is Stinky Pants version 2. What better track to start with? This is from user named Avail. Their level is a noob. This track is in the early mix, and over in the comments it says, I tried to take into consideration your feedback regarding the harshness of the voice, drums, spatial placement of the guitar. Am I going in the right direction? ATN. So let's check it out and see. So this user's probably submitted this mix before. This is version 2, and we're going to see if there's anything else we can help out with. So here we go.
Avoir de la maille, à partir avec autrui, pour le laisser sur la paille, à l'usure les fruits, méprisant le bétail, hier ou bien aujourd'hui, demain jouira sans entrailles, si rien n'est gratuit. Il y a tellement d'argent qui ne ruisselle qu'en dedans. Il y a tellement d'argent, mais pas pour les gens. Qui veut sa médaille, quelques euros de sueur, fond de tiroir et mitraille aux tables d'honneur. Du fond des poitrails, un balai masque vengeur, révélations en pagaille sous nos yeux songeurs. Il y a tellement d'argent qui ne ruisselle qu'en dedans. Il y a tellement d'argent, mais pas pour les gens. La jeunesse pleure, tandis que la quincaillerie répand à Saint-Meur debout, mais la cavale fuit. Ces messieurs hors paille et ces mesdames puis voleuses qui attendent la valeur travail d'une main baladeuse. Il y a tellement d'argent qui ne ruisselle qu'en dedans. Il y a tellement d'argent, mais pas pour les gens. Et ça baille, et ça ment. Et ça piaille, et ça ment. Et ça baille, et ça ment. Teur et ça piaille, et ça ment. Teur et ça braille, et ça ment. Teur et ça taille, et ça ment. Teur et ça déraille, ça dépaille, ça taille pas dans le détail. Ça se débraille son canaille, ça limaille en bataille. Ça sonne la bataille, mobilise la besaille. Ça chamaille, puis ça rit, ça ment et ça s'ennuie. Il y a tellement d'argent qui ne ruisselle qu'en dedans. Il y a tellement d'argent, mais pas pour les gens.
All right, awesome, Etienne. Great song, very cool. Yeah, so couple notes on it, but overall, I mean, really great performances, and really dig the overall direction of things that they're going in. I think like this is beyond an early mix. I think you're actually pretty close on this. So the first thing that I have is more of a production thing, and Tom Foolery, who is awesome, and he is part of the Puremix team. He's always got great comments on here, and I highly recommend checking out what he said in here because I agree with a lot of it, as I almost always do. Uh, Actually, just as I always do, I never disagree with Tom. Tom's awesome. But yeah, so let's talk about the production stuff first. And this is all subjective stuff. Like this is, open to interpretation as, you as a producer would put it in here. I'm here to comment on mix stuff, but I think that this would actually help out the mix. So Tom made a good point about things kind of feeling covered up and about how if you could spread the guitars out, it would feel more immersive. So with this, you have the center guitar, which normally I almost always by default just kind of pan a guitar off to one side just to give it a little bit of spread and to make room in the center for the vocal and just kind of get it out of the way. But in this case, I actually thought that you did it really well with the guitar not stepping on the vocal in the center in the intro of it, and everything felt pretty good there. Once the drums kick in, I kind of wanted to hear things go boom and kind of like spread out and go wider. And something that would help with that would be if you did a authentic double, not like any sort of trickery to real ADT or anything like that to make it stereo. But if you did an actual double of the rhythm guitar and then spread both of those out a little wider, I think that would be really awesome when the drums start kicking in, if it kind of went out and there was another guitar there. At that point, you wouldn't have to have the guitar in the center either, and it would kind of leave some more space up the middle. But again, that's a production thing. At the end there, where you have the solo guitar and the rhythm guitar, and they kind of spread out of the center a little bit, things start to feel a little bit better and bigger. And I think that you could accomplish that same thing, by just doing the double and having that happen earlier. Once the bass came in, I felt that was a little bit loud, and it was louder than the vocal and stepping on it. So just some things to check out there. Tom mentions that he felt like this is a little bit overcompressed, and I would agree with that. He had a good point about you can hear it clamping down on the drum fills. Totally agree. The vocal sounds a little overcompressed to me as well. It's nice to have a vocal that's sitting in place, but when it feels like it's constantly being smacked down, that can steal some of the intimacy of the vocal. So one thing I like to do for that is blend up a parallel compressor alongside the vocal, and you can control the vocal a little bit before sending it off to this parallel, but not overdoing it. And then the parallel is just going to be a super smashed, kind of guy that's like super controlled, and you bring that up in, but you still retain the transient of the original vocal. So I think that some vocal parallel compression could really help out here, and help you to reduce some of the stuff that you have on insert compression. The toms and the kick felt like they had a lot of presence to them, which is good, but it felt like it was a little bit resonant around like 4.5, 5K ish, where you start hearing a lot of like that smack, but it's almost like a pokey smack. So I would just kind of check out and see if you need that much brightness on those. A lot of this stuff can be related to monitoring situations too. And one thing that I found really useful is that kind of stuff stands out to me really well on AirPods. So if you have any kind of like earbud, or even AirPods especially, they kind of have they have a presence around that range that if things are kind of overdone, it shines a light on that. So a common thing that I'll do is just kind of check my mix on AirPods and listen for that kind of stuff. So you could check that out and see if you agree or not. But I think that taming some of that would help the drums kind of sit back. It would help the kick feel a little bit more full, and same with the toms, so they're not quite as like smacky, but have a little more body to them. The vocal, I felt like it could be a little bit wider, and I would accomplish that like spreading the vocal out with either like a tight slap delay on both sides, slightly offset to each other. I have one that I love using, which is just, one side is 104 milliseconds, the other one's 98, and then I'll kind of tweak that to the tempo to make sure that it feels good. But I don't bring that up to the point where it sounds like I'm hearing a stereo slap delay. I just kind of bring it up until I feel some width, but I'm not necessarily feeling like a slapping sensation or like an affected thing. I'm looking to spread the vocal out a little bit. Other techniques that are great for this are Soundtoys Microshift is fantastic for this. Again, not bringing it up to the point that you feel like you're in this chorused vocal, but just that it has a little bit more size and it's spread out a little bit. Small reverbs always work well for this too, like a small office room reverb. Fab has done that trick many times in his videos. Learned it from him. It's awesome. That can help to just kind of, again, like add a little bit of space to the vocal. The at 256, there's a single note guitar part that comes out that I felt like could have a little bit more space on it too, like a room reverb or some sort of delay kind of thing happening on. But yeah, overall, I think that this is super awesome. And if you work on the compression and some possibly adding some double guitar and stuff like that and spreading out the mix a little bit, giving yourself some more elements to work with, I think that this is in a great spot. And thank you so much for submitting. I am going to put a comment here, just saying I was here in case you're not live with us. So you'll know that you can go check it out. All right, so I'm going to sneak over to the YouTube chat here and see if you guys have submitted some stuff. All right, let's see. We got, first one I saw was MB Sound, the voice. Let me just make sure here. There's nothing else. Sean Wall, YouTube for the win. All right, let's see. Let's do MB Sound, the voice. And then Mike, I see you in the chat. Good to see you here. Primetime, what's up? Good to see you. Kenneth from Saturn is here. Smoking Fudo, good to see you here. Awesome. I love seeing all the usual guys. Oh, ATN, you were here. That's great. Awesome, man. Great job. Cool. Okay, let's go on to MB Sounds track here. And then we'll move on. And guys, make sure you check out the YouTube chat for the chat room's comments as well. People add stuff that I don't think of or hear on the first time too, and everybody's comments are amazing. So cool. All right, here we go. Next one.
She's the queen of the night. No question, that's right. Every single song tells a story that we know from life. They lift you up and they can give you hope. She's a one of a kind. She got my voice, my voice. She got my voice. She got the soul, the soul. She got the soul. She got the style, the style. She got the style. She got the voice. The greatest love of all can happen to you and me. When we reach inside ourselves, then we are able to see. This is a great message that we should not forget. And when there are hard times, let's excel and take it step by step. Whatever you want from me, I'm giving you everything. I'm your baby tonight. It's one of the greatest songs ever. She told us years ago that love will save the day. She's one of a kind, yeah. She got my voice, my voice. She got the soul, the soul. She got the soul. She got the style, the style. She got the style. She got the voice. It's timelessly good and inspiring. Her music will never die. Many great voices of today and night from the band. She got the voice, the skills, the soul, and the style. The sound, the personality, the vibe, and the smile. She got what it needs. There is no doubt that she got the voice. She got the voice, the voice. She got the soul, yeah. She got the soul, got the style, yeah. She got the style, got the voice. She got the voice, the voice. She got the soul, the soul. She got the style, the style. She got the voice. She got the voice, oh yeah, oh yeah. She got the soul, oh yeah, oh yeah. She got the style, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Awesome song, cool production. This is great. Thanks for submitting it, B. Yeah, totally dig this. Really, really great performances too. The bass player's killing, the singers are killing. This is awesome. Okay, so mix wise, first thing that stood out to me, besides that amazing panning on the tambourine, that's super cool. Which looks like Laban pointed out here as well, that he could use some more snare or backbeat. So I would agree with that. Like the drums as a whole, though, not just on the snare and the backbeat comment, but right now we have a ton of bass. The bass is super loud and it's a killer player, so I get that. But it is to me the loudest thing in the mix right now. So I would bring that back, and I feel like this track could benefit from sort of a rebalance of all the faders on it. If you have a lot of automation in your mix, this is a awesome tip that I wish I had learned earlier. If your DAW has trim mode, so if you're in like Pro Tools or Luna or Logic, if you have trim mode, you can put all of your channels in trim, and then your faders act independently of whatever automation is going on. So they all should go back to unity, and then you can adjust their level relative with the automation envelope that's already in there. You could turn the whole thing up or down a dB, 2 dB, whatever. Or in this case, I would try putting them all in trim, bringing the faders down, and then start bringing up the elements of the mix that are the most important. So to me, on a track like this, it's all about the rhythm section, right? So not just the bass, but the drums. They're going to be pushing us along in that groove. And while we have that tambourine that's kind of our timekeeper and is doing a great job of that, I would start bringing up like the kick, the snare, and really finding the earthy rhythm of this track, because it's all about groove. It's a like dance feel. We got to feel like the bass drum and the snare drum like really pushing us along. And then once I have a good balance on that, I'd start bringing in that bass and give it the priority that it deserves, because it is a major element of the song. But maybe not so much that it's like kind of overshadowing the vocal. Also on the bass, it feels a little bit muddy in the low mids to me. It's a great killer bass tone, and a rebalance thing might even deal with some of this, but potentially adding a little bit more like upper mids, like 800 to 1.6, like the octave of the 800, could add some more definition. Not going too far with it, because it doesn't need to be a super bright bass tone, but it sounds like the tone knobs rolled back pretty far, and it could use just a little bit more finger from it. So that might help. And then the going on to the vocal, it feels like it's getting a little harsh on the higher notes, especially toward the end there. So usually around like, 2.5 to 4.5K, like things start kind of getting resonant, poking out, stabbing your ears a little bit. And to deal with stuff like that, I've talked about this before on the stream, but you have to ask yourself a question of, is this a temporary or a permanent problem? So permanent or persistent problem would be that it's happening throughout the entire performance. A temporary problem would be it only happens when she hits these high notes. I think that it's more of a temporary problem in this one. And to deal with something like that, I would either automate a band of EQ and just kind of deal with those points when they come, or use something like Soothe, but maybe not turn it on until it gets to those points. And Soothe, if you're unfamiliar, is basically a dynamic EQ with a lot of bands. It'll find resonances like that and try to control them, tame them, keep them in check, and from getting like too brittle. The aside from that, the horns and the drums, I feel like could use a common space. So just something to kind of glue it all together. I think that they're MIDI horns. They sound a bit dry to me, and they could have some space around them, and maybe sharing that space with the drums would be a really cool thing. For stuff like that, any room emulation, like any of the IK Multimedia room emulations, like the Fame Reverb or the Sunset Sound Reverb, or UA has Ocean Way Studios, which is one of my favorite plugins ever. That thing is a miracle worker. You could kind of create a sense that they were all in a studio in the same room playing together, and that would add a little bit of dimensionality to it that I think would be pretty cool. But awesome track. I would play around just with the balance a little bit more, and find like the meat of the song, the thing that's really pushing us forward. And to me, that's the drums, the bass, and those vocals are insane. So those obviously have to be up there, and then the rest of it's kind of taste in there. Biggest problem right now, I think, is just that the bass is kind of eating the rhythm section. But overall, this is awesome. Thank you for submitting it, and I hope that helps. So let me put in my comment here. So Mark was here, and I got to go get the YouTube thing. So I'm going to check out the chat room here and see who else has submitted. There we go. Boom, boom. All right, next song. So in here, our next guy. Let me go up. That was MB. So we'll go on to, okay, username Mick Drummer 9. The song is The Ocean. Let's go check it out. All right, here we go, Mick. This track is an advanced mix, resubmitting this cover of the Led Zeppelin song, The Ocean. Applied some suggestions from last time, and here we go.
Then they went 1, 2, 3, 4.
Singing around, singing songs till the night turns into day. Listen, singing the mountains, but the mountains washed away. I'm gonna singing all my songs to the bedroom of my heart. She's only 3 years old, she feels I made a star. Oh yeah, it's sure it's fine. Blow my mind. When the days are going down, yeah, yeah.
Awesome, Mick. Cool. Nice tag at the end. Awesome. Okay, so great job on this. And I think to help you the best, I need to listen to just a second of the original, which I have pulled up. Just give me 3 seconds and I'll be right back. Okay, sorry, I couldn't play that for you guys because, YouTube had shut us down. Hardcore. Um, all right, so just checked in on the original a little bit, and that confirmed something I wanted to comment on, but I wanted to make sure that you weren't just like going after the original mix. So, first comment to me is kind of like the last song. Everything is very, very mono except for the drums in this case, and then toward the end we got the extra guitars and they pan out a little bit. But the big thing to me is that main guitar riff, the blah 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 blah. That's happening up the center, and on the original, like I thought, it's kind of more over. It's panned out a bit. It's not all in the center, and it makes more room for the vocal, for the snare and the kick and the bass and all that stuff that happens up in the center to breathe a little bit more. And in general, the center is sacred ground. So I always think of that as like I need the core elements of my mix, like what makes this song tick. And the guitar in this one is obviously a very featured element. But it can actually be featured a little bit more by getting it out of the center and leaving some other room for some of those elements that we expect to be more in the center. So that guy, I consider putting it off a little bit more to the left. You're definitely going for like that classic Zeppelin sound on the drums, and I think like the drum sounds are really, really awesome. There's something a little phasey in the overheads to me. I don't know that there's you could play around with the left and right relationship to those by moving it around, but it might not be too big of a deal either. The one thing that stood out to me is when you go into those fills and the toms happen, those are happening in stereo, and they kind of end up being the most stereo elements of the mix to me, which I think like that's totally awesome. Just needs some more support on the sides from the guitars and maybe like those background vocals, as well as like putting some space around those to give some dimensionality and widen them out a little bit. The kick feels a little bit too loud to me, and every once in a while it's got some sub frequencies that are kind of getting away. So this is something that's hard to hear if you don't have a monitoring system that extends down that low. But once in a while the kick will sustain, and this can happen from the beater coming off of the head, whereas on other hits it's being buried into the head and it's left there until you do the next one. But if you hit it and let it go, the low end sustains out. That can be something that happens from inconsistency or intentionality from drummers. But you can kind of control some of that by throwing a high pass filter on there and just cutting out the very sub bottom that gets away sometimes without taking away the thickness of the bass drum. So we're talking like, throwing a high pass, at like 40 or something like that, or just kind of playing with it, moving it up and down so that you're not stealing the meat of the kick around like 60, 80, wherever that one happens to be, but you're just kind of taking care of some of the sub information that might be every once in a while sustaining out and blooming. The bass guitar feels a little bit distant to me, like we need some more volume and some more presence from it. That vocal parallel compression that I mentioned a minute ago can also work well on bass if you need the bass to just kind of, if the vocal's here and you just need the bass to come forward in the mix a little bit. That's something I find to be really useful. Just try taking an 1176 and just really, really smashing that bass down and then blending it up under an uncompressed signal so that you maintain your transient, but you just kind of push it forward in the mix a little bit and it'll come closer to the listener. Same with the vocal. Like, I think the vocal could use a little bit more chest to it, a little bit more body. It gets a little bit thin at sometimes, which like when you're singing that high, who doesn't? But sometimes you can bring an EQ and kind of boost up some of the body of the vocal to help out with that. And again, if it's only a temporary problem, it's only happening on certain spots, don't be afraid to automate something to just make one little portion feel better. Bring up the gain on one EQ band on just a part and then bring it back out if you don't need that body going forward or something like that. So yeah, just watch out for the high mids in the vocal. Make sure they don't get too screechy. Around 135, the background vocal felt a little bit louder than the actual vocal to me, so just watch out with the balance of those. I think like that's another spot where you could play around with doing some spreading, play around with some reverb. Not when I say reverb, I'm not meaning like long decayed, lasting forever tails from a plate or a chamber or something like that. Just something to give it some space and a little bit of dimensionality, like it's existing inside of a space instead of a dry vocal. the guitars overall get a little bit thin to me. I would watch out for the upper mids on those. And this is something, again, with the EQ stuff. If the upper mids are getting out of control, instead of cutting around the upper mids, sometimes it's better to look lower and find a frequency where the guitar is speaking well, like in the low mids or something like that, and give that a bit of a bump. It doesn't have to be a tight cue, but just look for a spot. What's really cool about some of the analog modeled stuff is they have fixed frequency points, as opposed to like a graphic, or not a graphic EQ, but like a Pro Q3 or like the stock reverb or EQ in Logic, where you can just move those bands wherever you want. Something that's really cool about those fixed frequencies is most of the time they were set by engineers who knew that a lot of information was happening at those fixed frequency points, which is why they put them there. And you can just kind of click in between them and boost up and just see if something makes the instrument speak. And one thing that is really, really fun, this is a trick I learned from one of my mentors, John Paterno, is I'll try like a 1073 and I'll play around with the different frequency points and just kind of boost around it, see if one of them makes them speak well. And then after I kind of get a cool sound with that, I'll bypass it, throw an API or 550 on there or whatever else, pick your poison, but do the same thing, dial in a sound with that one. And then go back and I'll listen to like the different plugins and what I got out of each one. And then I'll pick the one that felt really good for that. I don't do that on every single track. It's, if I'm kind of experimenting and just looking for something to work well, that's something that can kind of like, if I feel like I'm in a rut or something, or if I'm, beating my head against a wall, I'll try doing that. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, this is the better sound. So I'll go with this. So back to the guitar thing, if it's feeling thin, I would look for a frequency point below and try boosting that before cutting the upper mid stuff. So that way you don't end up with like an artificially carved kind of sound, but you just added some body to the guitar. I think that'd be pretty cool. At 321, you have the other guitar that comes in over here on the left, and I heard some high-end kind of fizzy fuzz stuff happening up there. It's just kind of like, it's more noise than it is additive to the sound. And for stuff like that, I'll throw a low pass filter on and I'll just try shaving off some of that excess stuff that might be like fizzy and a little bit tiring to the ear, just to kind of add some focus to where the actual like portion of the sound is that I want to hear. But again, like I want to preserve the tone, so I'll just kind of do it until things feel more pleasing to the ear, but not so that it's so much change the song. So I hope that helps, Mick. Really awesome song, cool remake, great choice of song. And let's move on to our next one. So I really need to copy this to the clipboard. Let's see who else has submitted for today. Go back here, boom. This time I'm going to copy it. There we go. Now I'm on your wall. Okay. Let's see what we got. So that was McDrummer. Primetime. Do we also get a small studio tour? Yes, Primetime. I will be doing stuff like that. And Primetime's asking about the plugin show I mentioned earlier, if we'll get a small studio tour in that. I'll be showing like stuff from my room throughout that series. So it's gonna be fun for sure. Okay, let's see. Primetime Ribas, let's see. Sean, wait, you're having issues in your studio. Can I help? I can help. Probably not right now, but I can help. Shoot me an email at mark@puremix.net, and if I can answer your question, I will. That's mark@puremix.net. Let's see here. Lots of good comments on ATN's mix in there. And let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. So, did something a bit different with time. Studio Jaman. Yes. Awesome, Mike. You got a new mix on here. Let's check it out. I love when Mike submits stuff. All right, cool. This song is called Time from Studio Jaman. And here we go. Oh, you said something a bit different for me anyway. Hope you like. All right. Let's see, Mike. Here we go. This is different for you.
tried to stretch it straight and force it down flat, but now the ends are in our hands and we're bending it back. History is prophecy, future, present, past. Time is a cycle and we're circling back. They tried to stretch it straight and force it down flat, but now the ends are in our hands and we're bending it back.
Awesome, Mike. This is great. This is different for you, but it's equally awesome. This is really cool. Yeah, definitely love all the programming and all the elements of this. The vocals are great. Um, it's interesting that they come in about halfway through the song too, like instead of typical format. So that's pretty cool. Um, so just kicking off from the beginning, all the programming is really, really great. I love all the parts that you have in here, and I think you've got all the ingredients for something amazing. And this is on the way for sure. Something feels a little loose in the timing to me in the intro. Again, like all of the elements are there. They just don't feel like they're all locked to the same pattern or groove template, if you will. So I don't know if you're doing some quantizing with this. It does sound like they're consistent inside of each other, but not as a collective. So it's almost if you've never heard of groove templates before, it's basically like a MIDI groove that you can apply to your performances. So it's really, really easy to do in Ableton and pretty awesome for Ableton's great at this. It's one of the best DAWs to do this kind of thing in. But it sounds like a pre-recorded performance that you can kind of put on top of your performance. So it maintains all your notes. It just kind of locks the MIDI in instead of going to like the straight grid like you normally would. It sort of provides a different grid for you to quantize to. So this one feels, again, like all of those parts are consistent inside of each other, but not as a collective unit. So I think that there's some timing things that need to just kind of be locked in a little bit to make that groove really feel right. I was kind of grooving along to a different pulse, and then I think the kick came in and it was in a different spot than I expected it to be. Not a different beat, just a different like kind of subdivision or swing than some of the other stuff was. Also with the kick, it's really, really loud in the mix right now. I'm not sure if this says early mix. I'm not sure if like you've gone down the rabbit hole of mixing too far yet, or if this is like the tracking or the production mix where, you know, you guys were just vibing in the room. And that's usually like, you know, pretty common is that like you have the kick up and everybody's feeling the pulse and it's awesome. But yeah, the kick feels a little loud to me and like it has too much sub. I would try adjusting its balance in the mix first and just seeing if just bringing it down resolves it. But it might be a little bit too fat in the bottom. Again, just like high pass filter, just shaving off the very back of it, just, you know, up to try playing with it, you know, moving it up to 40. The Dangerous back CQ is amazing for this. It has fixed points, and a lot of times you can just play with the high pass filter and move them up to different positions until you feel that you've cleaned up the bottom without changing the tone of the drum very much. So I'd recommend something like that. The vocal feels a little loud to me, and like it's very mid-range focused, like 400 to 600. This can happen with overcompression, but again, like you could just use an EQ and see if you can find some other points to make that vocal speak before you start taming stuff. Just see if you can add some more broadband attention to it and make it feel like a I don't want to say more full vocal because it doesn't necessarily feel thin to me, but just a more balanced sound. The higher vocal that comes in, the one that's singing the higher harmony, that vocal, like that arrangement, the vocal arrangement of that is fantastic. And I feel like that higher one could have some more spread on it. And for this, I would recommend the micro shift and pushing it to the point where you really feel the effect of a microshift, not like overdoing it, but where you actually do get a stereo spread of it. And I think that it feels, like it would be appropriate for this genre of music too. You've got like a more electronic thing. Having a vocal like that would be in the vein of things that we know like that. So I love the song, and definitely would love to hear another mix of this. So if you keep working on it, please submit it for the next Mix Tank. I'll be back in 2 weeks, and it'd be awesome to hear this again because I really like this song. So thank you as always for submitting. I, again, always love when you do. Your stuff is rad. Okay. Next song in the YouTube chat was, I believe, from Primetime. I got F Mix, R6, Tape Moth Boys, Tomboy, Tape something. Let me try just searching for this. There it is. F Mix, R6 plus L2 plus Tape, Tomboy, Moss, 30, OKT, 22, Wave, Primetime Robots. Here we go. Also, if you guys have tuned in before, you know that I am freaking in love with this band. Please check them out. TM Boy. Go find it on all the social media platforms. This band is amazing. Fab mixed it. This is one of my favorites. Here we go.
Sleepless in the morning, thoughts collecting warning. Faceless was the future, the hands that held me suture. 'Cause I was just a young girl, skinless with my hair curled. I turned it on, the light back on. A skeleton must be under. I say it again, how I begin to crawl back out from under.
Nice. Prime time.
All I ever wanted was drunken lights are closing. Feel tired from the warmth and steady on the pavement.
Awesome, man. Favorite thing, same as what Tom said on this. We know this song very, very well because Fab mixed it and we've used it in some other Puremix videos. You guys can find videos of Andrew Sheps mixing it. Um, I I absolutely love the song and that record. I listened to nonstop. It came out, I believe, right before like I joined Puremix, and this is like mid 2010s, something like that. Uh, and I was obsessed with it and listened to it nonstop and bugged the living hell out of Fab with questions about the mixes and all that because I thought the record was so good. So I know this one really, really well, which means I have this preconceived notion of what it is in my head. And what I think is cool about the original, what stood out to me was how dry it was, but still felt massive and in its own way, and still had dimension and all in depth and all of these things without feeling like it was really in a lot of effects or anything. But like what Tom said on here, I love the more spacious take on the song. It's really cool to hear it in this other light, and I love that instead of just being true to what you heard in the actual record version or what you saw in like the videos or anything like that, you took the chance to actually do a completely different perspective on the song. And that's something, the last mixing contest that we had with Joe Ciccarelli with Alanis Morissette's song, one thing that he commented on was a lot of the mixes that he heard, like while they were really awesome, great mixes, they were sort of just recreations of what was already there. You know, it was like going after this like sense of perfection or like, you know, whatever, you know, assuming like Joe's thing is like the version of the song, he was really hoping, because he also produced it too, he was hoping to hear some different takes on it and hear people kind of stretching the limits, even if it, you know, maybe got a little crazy or something like that, just to hear something different and hear people's creativity instead of us just, you know, kind of tweaking things for the sake of tweaking things or again, like chasing perfect. So kudos for trying out a different perspective. It's really fun. And I think it works really well mostly in the beginning of the song. And I know you've submitted this one before, and I think I had this comment last time that at the end of the song, we're missing some elements. The marimba is such an important part of this band. And sorry if I'm repeating myself if I said this before, but one of the cool things about this band is the producer and the second band member, Will, made his marimba with pickups in it that fed into MIDI. So he could do all sorts of things, and he could send the microphones from his marimba through a bunch of effects. And that's a lot of the really cool part of this band is the marimba is making all of these interesting tones that don't sound like a marimba all the time, but they're the core of like what makes that band. That's like their thing, right? Is like this ultra effective marimba deal. And at the end, I feel like we're missing it. And I lose the harmonic structure of the song. That also makes me feel like I lose momentum, and that mostly happens around 3 minutes. So that's my production notes on it. Is I think that it's still missing some of that like harmonic information at the end of the song that's in the original. That's crucial for the vocal to work. It's like what the vocal's feeding off of more than the bass like sounds and all of that. So I check that out. Some of the synths that used to be there, just see like if you feel like they don't need to be there and that's your take on the song, that's totally cool. But I think that they help keep the momentum going. So around 2:40, I heard some mouth noise. So I just want to check that out because this is something that I feel is really easy to overlook and it's so easily fixed. So it's in this break, I believe. Let's check it out.
And I need it in the end.
Not suggesting you do anything with that breath. Only with the that happens from her lips while she's getting ready to sing the next line. The breath you spread out, and that's freaking cool. Love that. Don't change it. But the mouth smacky stuff is taking my attention away because it's more present than what you did with the spread out breath. So I would deal with that. Isotope mouth declick. It factory setting won't chew up your vocal, and it just gets rid of all that stuff. It's amazing. That thing is sorcery. Yeah, so the 206, the main synth, I think it happens a little before 206, but I have that it's a little wide. Let's just check that out.
Over by the others.
Yeah, so it's the woo, 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 that thing terrible singing. I'm so sorry. But that is the main harmonic instrument that's happening there. And it's really thin and spread out wide at that point. So again, just like in terms of keeping momentum going, harmonic structure, that part feels like it needs to be closer to me. But I love that you're trying something creative. So it might be cool to just bring it up in the mix. Let's see here. The vocal feels a little bit overcompressed to me, and it gets a little some of that like mid-range thing that can happen when a vocalist starts getting nasally if it's overcompressed and losing some of the body of it. So I would just check that out. Again, parallel compression is your friend in most cases, not all cases, but let's see. The other thing was there are some points where you have things super spread out with wideners, and they're so spread out. Like when you start going really up high with a widener, depending on, I don't know which one you're using, so I was gonna like call out a control, but you could be using a different one. I know like any of the Brainwork stuff, you know, you can go from 100 to like 200 or something like that, and almost all their plugins have some sort of stereo width control built into them. If you blow that out too far, things go out of phase and it starts feeling really weird, like the same kind of weird where if you are older than 30 and you remember having speakers that you plug speaker cable into, if you plugged it in backwards on one side, the stereo sounded really freaking wonky. That's what that stuff sounds like to me. It's just completely out of phase, and it goes away in mono. I don't think you care about mono based on your decisions in this, which is totally fine. But it feels so out of phase that it's almost like an uncomfortable, washy, swimmy feeling when you are listening in stereo too. So just watch out for that. Like going too wide with widening there's a point where you have diminishing returns, I guess. Like you get wider, and then if you go too far, it starts making things feel really anxious and weird. At least for me, that's the sensation that I have. But yeah, again, like Primetime, awesome. I love that you're doing a different take on this, and I don't want to discourage you from doing that. I think keep going with it. Just, yeah, I know like if the producer heard this, they'd probably be offset by the missing harmonic elements at the end, but otherwise, freaking really, really cool. And I love that we get to listen to Tomboy on the live stream. So that's an added bonus. All right. Next one. Thanks for being here too, Primetime. See you all the time and really appreciate you showing up. Whiskey from a Paper Cup from Brandon Krutel. Let's see. That's going to be our next guy. Whiskey from a Paper Cup. Hold on here. Ooh, Deficiency is back. Nice. I love that name. There it is. All right. Let's check this one out. Here we go. This is so a couple notes on this. B. Krutel, levels passionate, early mix. This is a bedroom recording, quick initial mix, trying to tame her unique voice. It's got a little sizzle I can't seem to track down. Thanks for listening. Cool, let's do it. Here we go.
Drinking whiskey from a paper cup, waiting for the tide to turn, and from the tailgate of my pickup truck, I can see my bridges burn. I see my bridges burn, and I've got nothing left to sell you. Everything I had is gone. I'm staring at this blank sheet of paper, trying way too hard to write this song. Seems like everything I know is wrong. I get so turned around. Even the right turns I make take me to the wrong side of town. I'm drinking whiskey from a paper cup, waiting for the tide to turn, and from the tailgate of my pickup truck, I can see my bridges burn. I see my bridges burn. I smell the black smoke rising, hear the bridge crackle and moan, tears spilling across this empty page, trying to find their way into this song. Couldn't bear to watch you go, I could not make you stay. Only things we can keep are the ones we give away. Drinking whiskey from a paper cup, waiting for the tide to turn, and from the tailgate of my pickup truck I can see my bridges burn. I see my bridges burn. If I put the right rhyme on a lucky line, would you come back again? If I put the right rhyme on a lucky line, would you come back again? If I put the right rhyme on a lucky line, would you come back? Would you come back? Would you come back again? Drinking whiskey from a paper cup.
Awesome. Okay. Couple weird things happened at the end there, Brandon. Sounds like your vocal died off. And then the guitars seemed like they cut at a weird spot. So that's probably just some bouncing stuff that got a little weird. Your other comment in here is that you're trying to deal with a little bit of sizzle that you're trying to track down on her voice. So let's just take a listen to that.
Hear the bridge crackle and moan,
Feisty.
tears spilling across this empty from a paper cup, waiting for the tide to turn, and from the tailgate of my pickup truck I can see my bridges burn.
So I don't hear anything super annoying with that. I do hear the overcompression thing happening a little bit, where it's starting to bunch up the mids, and she's getting a little honky, a little nasally in there. So I'd actually watch out for the compression thing, and that could be causing some of what you're dealing with. And then the other same thing that I said earlier too, if it's feeling too bright, sometimes you just got to bring the bottom up instead of taming down the top. You can get into, I think that like common thing that we find on these is like a lot of over de-essing. And sometimes that's just because the vocal's too thin or it's over compressed. And if you just either loosen the compressor or like look for some points to add some body into the vocal instead of bringing everything down, that can kind of clear things up. So check out some other ranges in her voice with an EQ and just see if there's something that brings her to life a little bit more and helps that vocal speak, but not to the point, obviously where you're making it boomy, but just maybe it'll solve your issue and it'll feel like a more full vocal overall with it. I would saw this in the chat while I was going on, and then I started getting distracted thinking about how awesome this is. Brandon just said that the singer is in her 70s and she's feisty and freaking awesome. So kudos to her. And that's amazing. The couple of other things that I heard on this, the acoustic guitars felt like they could come up a little bit, but it also feels like they're a little overcompressed as well with a fast attack. So the picking stuff, I'm hearing that the picking noises are being like smacked down a little bit, and then there's a lot of sustain to them, and I'm missing some of that transient detail from the acoustics. So I think check out your compression settings on those and consider loosening up that attack time on the compressor so that we get some more transient and some more kind of detail and dimensionality from that acoustic on there. I like what you did with the vocal reverb, how it kind of like blooms out. The way that you have the timing set on that is really, really cool. The bass guitar feels a little low to me. If you bring it up and kind of work on that sound a little bit, just watch out that it doesn't crowd the vocal because the vocal feels like it's sitting in a really good spot right now. Just that the bass is a little bit low, so we could use some more like emphasis of the drums and the bass kind of gluing together a little bit more together. I think that'll be cool. And vocals lost on the chorus. We talked about that. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I got for the most part on this. I'd love to hear another mix of this I'd love to hear another mix of this as you go along. So please come back and put a new version in. Cool. I hope that's helpful. Next one we're going to do is called When You're Watching Me. So let's put this in the search. It's from Ray. And Ray says, this is the ultimate final mix. .3.1. No, he doesn't have .3.1, but okay. Let's check it out, Ray. Here we go. Scott, Jacob, what's up? Good to see you guys.
Shivers down my spine when you're watching me. Shivers down my spine when you're watching me. When you're watching me, does it mean you want to stay? When you're watching me, does it mean you want to play?
So Ray, I'm going to back up and listen to a little bit more of this one because you have a really cool tone and a cool shape to this mix that it took my ear to like adjust to a minute after the last one. And I want to comment correctly. So I'm going to listen to just a little bit more of this. Here we go.
When you're watching me, does it mean you want to stay? When you're watching me, does it mean you want to play?
This had to be a really, really fun song to mix. This is awesome. Ray, let me know if you produce this as well because you did a killer job. This is excellent. Her voice is amazing. And the whole thing has a tone to it. This is what I wanted to kind of adjust for. It has a dark tone, very mid-focused, which is like there's so much definition in there. It's all really, really well done. And I love the tone of it. It's not an overly hyped, bright thing. And I don't think that you should change the tone of it at all. I think that that's awesome. The only thing that's honestly really sticking out to me, I have a couple notes, but the biggest one is that the vocal has some like, I don't know, I'm guessing here, but it's like around 400, there's some resonant stuff that starts to bloom out a little bit. That could be resolved really, really easy with just a hair of EQ, but I wouldn't go crazy with it because the vocals almost have a ribbon mic quality to them, which I think is super awesome, and it helps with the mid-focus thing that you have going on with this. So I wouldn't overdo it. It's just once in a while she hits a note that will just kind of resonate and peak up. And it's not a compression thing, it's an EQ thing. Maybe that's the only thing I would touch in the vocal. Other than that, I wouldn't, like, my natural inclination is to say that it's dark, but it's not dark, it's the shape of it, and I wouldn't change that. You know, that, like, if you send it to a mastering guy and they send it back with like a bunch of 12K a shelf on it or something like that, it would just be wrong because it's the vibe of the song. I love that it's like the darkness is, I don't know, it matches the production and the vocals. I think you've done a really, really good job on that. And that's something that takes some really it takes like a lot of creativity and a lot of intentionality. So I think that that's awesome. The only things that I really got were, I would love to hear it with real drums on it. It sounds like they're programmed. I think that the song deserves it. I think that that's totally worthwhile if you went and got a real drummer on it. That may not be a real thing or be like a possible thing, but it would be another cool texture to it. I think it would kind of breathe some life into it. I would maybe try cutting a little bit of low end on the verb that's on the drums. It feels like when the kick hits, it blooms out in a little bit of a masking sort of way where it's overtaking some other elements. And then once in a while, there's some elements, and I think on the overheads or the rooms, it feels like you've got some stereo widening on there that's, again, just kind of spread out a little bit too wide. Then it starts feeling phasey to me rather than immersive. It becomes distracting. Again, there's a point of diminishing returns with that stuff. Amazing song, though. And if you touch this again and you lied and this is not the ultimate final mix, I would love to hear it again. So great job, Ray. Thanks for being here in the chat, too. That song is awesome. I need to, or maybe somebody in the chat could help me out with this, too. Like, we need to start, I don't know, like a Spotify playlist of songs that have been on here that are, amazing. And because there's so many good ones every week, and it would be really cool to have a playlist of all of the stuff that we featured somewhere. That sounds like a job for somebody at Puremix or something like that. But there's some really, really great material here. And I don't even know like when or if some of this stuff gets released. So if you guys ever put some of this stuff out, hit me up at mark@puremix.net or something, and maybe we'll start that playlist. Awesome. All right, our next one's going to be from Logan. Let's see what we got. This is Ali. Here we go.
L'espace est noir et glacial et en paix. Rien ne saurait perturber l'impeccable silence par lequel j'avance, projeté comme un jet. veux pas mourir sans avoir tout compris. J'ai trop souffert d'ennui, d'amour. J'ai peu joui. Toute ma sombre vie, j'ai traîné comme un chien. Je n'ai jamais tenu le fil d'un destin. Et j'ai cru tant de choses débiles. Naïveté de volébile. Et pour moi tendresse maternelle. J'ai cru que la vie était belle. Traînant mes bottes dans les flaques d'ombre et de sang. J'ai cru à la bonté des gens. J'ai vu qu'ils étaient cruels. Cette terre est bien loin maintenant. Tout petit à petit, son disque disparaît. Sans aucune espèce de regret. Et non sans plus de soulagement.
Super awesome track, Logan. I love this. I love the production on it. I love the style of it. All of that is freaking cool. So the first thing I'm going to point out, I'm such a stickler for this stuff. And I said something about another track earlier about this, but there's some mouth noise in here. Let's listen. So you've got, I don't know if you heard that chat room while we were going through, and then there was another spot somewhere a little bit later. I won't look for it right now, but you've got this really, really sparse production where every element matters because there's not a lot going on. There's not like a steady drum beat pulse that holds attention and can distract from little things that happen. You've got little hi-hat notes that come in. They're not keeping time. They're just adding texture and some subdivision, but not in a consistent manner. And I absolutely love that. I love the minimalist approach to it. But when you take that approach, every little noise matters, in my opinion. And something like a lip smack that sounds like a hi-hat, if it happens out of time, or if it happens in a weird spot, or if there's a delay on that lip smack and it, kind of goes out of time and makes it wonky, it steals away some of the preciousness and importance that you put on other things happening in random spots by having a minimalist production. So little vocal cleanup. I should just be more concise and say clean the vocal. But yeah, that's very important in a track like this. And I think it's more important than a track like this, obviously, because of the importance that you put on each little subdivision. The next thing is stereo widening again. So another theme for today, I guess. This one almost gives me the sensation that I'm listening in an Atmos room and I'm in stereo. And unfortunately, not in a good way, where like you can achieve those things and make your, mix sound like it's bigger than life and bigger than the system that it's being played back on and all that. But if you do it to the point that it feels phasey and weird, it's unsettling to me. And I think like there have been all kinds of talks on this about, the way that we interpret sound and hear things and how our ears were designed. And, we're not supposed to hear things that are above us as much as the saber-toothed tiger that's behind us, and all these evolutionary, kind of ideas behind how our hearing is developed and what's important. Like we weren't as worried about the pterodactyls as we were about the jaguar that was running at us from the side, or what was happening in front of us, those kinds of things. And I feel uneasy when I hear things that are spread out too far. So the widening that you have on the bass, totally something I would do. I usually accomplish those things with like delays and stuff like microshift, but even that can get a little too phasey. So you have to be sparse with it and tasteful, but not going to the point where it's, again, just there's a point of diminishing returns. At least for me, my preference, I feel that way. And the phase stuff can be unsettling, I guess. It just steals away from some of the importance of your mix. If you feel like you need to get things that wide, it might be that you need to make some room in the center of the mix to make the sides feel wider. One thing that I'll do, even on rock mixes, like with big loud guitars and everything. I won't do LCR panning where I'll throw things, 100 on each side and only use the center and not panning in between. I'll usually put like the guitars, I'll put them at 75 and I'll leave the 100, like that space between 75 and 100 for things like my reverbs, and space to kind of bloom out to. And if I need to, I can always go wider. It's not to say it's like a hard and fast rule, but I'll leave some room on the sides, for some of that other stuff to happen. And that gives you the perception of a wide mix without having to do any tricks with throwing polarity off between the left and right speaker. Yeah, but LCR panning is super cool too. So that can be a thing. I didn't even write notes because I was just captivated while I was listening through here. So I'm going to listen for one more thing. There was a vocal comment I had that is escaping me at the moment. So one second.
Traînant mes bottes dans les flaques d'ombre de sang.
I remember. Okay, so two comments I have. The delays that you have on the vocals, this is all taste and subjective, but I felt like you could commit to those a little bit more. Sonic Science Lab had a good comment in here that he felt like it was missing some automation to give it more motion. For me, it's just that it needs more motion. However you go about creating that, if that's like with tremolo or movement, more movement in the mix, more motion would be awesome because it's so minimalistic. I love minimalistic stuff. Like, I talked a couple weeks ago about Kanye West's, what was the name of the record? It's the one with I Am a God on it. Chat room, help me out. It's a great record. Think what you may of Kanye. That record is really, really well put together, and the producers and everything that were involved, it's super killer and it's very minimalistic. But when you have something so sparse and you have all of this space to play with, take advantage of it and move things around, move volumes around, put your hands on the fader, and like with that static hardware, synth bass that you mentioned in the comments, add a little motion to it. Just ride the fader, even if it's in very, very fine increments, just pulsing the fader up and down in time can add some motion to it and just put some humanity in it, too, which you obviously love because you're working with hardware and stuff. So, you could play when you're playing it down, you can play with like very, very micro movements on the filter to just kind of give a little bit of a pulse and a little bit of movement. The vocal delays, I felt like you could commit to more to because they're so awesome. They could come up in the mix and they're going to give us little pinpoints of where things are in space, which I think is really, really neat. I like really, really love this production. I love stuff that is like this. And again, I'd love to hear another version of this. I think it's awesome. And I think you're onto something really cool. Watch out for overcompression on the vocal again. Same kind of thing I heard before in some of the other tracks where the vocal starts sounding a little bit nasally and a little bit congested because of overcompression. In this one, I understand why you'd want to go for that. You want that vocal right in front of your face. Again, parallel compression's your friend here. Like, leave the main vocal. You can control it, but do another copy of that vocal that's super smashed and bring that up underneath so you maintain some of the original transient while bringing the vocal forward in the mix. For me, if I have a vocal and the vocal feels like it's sitting here, the second I bring that parallel compressor in, it feels like the entire thing shifts closer to me, and I love that sensation. It's the same as compressing the vocal and turning it up, but you're maintaining some of the natural transients to it. So I hope that helps. Love the song. Super cool. Okay. Let's grab a couple more from the chat and let's see how everybody's doing. Victor says my windows started to shake. That's a sign of a good mix, is if the windows are shaking. C-Rose said too much low end on the vocals. Yeah, again, like it just feels a little congested. All right. I said it like that probably because the song was in French. Let's see. Okay. Oh, Raymond, that's awesome. Raymond said that song before that one that we listened to. Raymond's song he produced it with his girlfriend. That's amazing. Her voice is killer, and you did a great job. Again, I think that song deserves some drums. Release that thing. All right. Who's got a mix for me? Hit me up in the chat. If I missed you, hit me. Karen Bassett asks, how can we avoid mouth noises during recording? Place the mic further away from the singer. So Karen, sometimes you can't. Yeah, Black Skinhead by Kanye was awesome. Sorry, Karen, sometimes you can't. And yes, mic placement. A lot of times it's from the mouth getting a little bit dry too. If you make somebody drink some water, that can really cut down on a lot of that. Like, if things start getting sticky, they have more of that smacking sound. So sometimes if I'll hear that during a vocal session, I'll just say like, hey, grab some of your water, let's take 2 seconds and just drink some water, and that'll clear some of it up. But luckily we have Isotope D mouth click. I love that thing. Okay, Jose has one for us. This is Cadet. Oh, nice. And Palisades has one. Sweet. Okay, we'll do Jose's, and then we're going to go find Palisades. If I'm skipping anybody, I apologize greatly. Let me know. Sea Rose. Got you. We'll do Sea Rose third. And then we'll see. Oh, Dancing Dogs by Midge. We'll hit that. So let's hit those 4, and then we'll see where we're at. We have until about 4:30 today. Dancing Dogs. And Almost Meditation from Deficiency. Yes. All right. Dancing Dogs and Deficiency. And that's probably going to do it for us. Deficiency. There we go. Trying to get my track demo ready. Awesome. Okay. Mastering Wormhole. That sounds fun. Okay. We'll start off with Jose's Cadet. And to get to all these, I might not listen to the whole thing on each of them, but let's see how we do. Here we go. Yeah, 9:23. So I can't listen to the whole thing, Jose, but we'll do spot checks. Here we go.
Dame tu amor, no me lo niegues, mamita. Así no va. Si tú me pides que no te quiera, es como si viniera de que del cielo sin sus estrellas, o que se vuela una vez sin alas. Y es por eso que mi corazón te pide amor. Por favor, no me lo niegues, dame tu amor. Si tú me pides que no te quiera, es como si viniera de que del cielo sin sus estrellas, o que se vuela una vez sin alas. Y es por eso que mi corazón
Crop, we'll get to it.
pide amor. Por favor, no me lo niegues, dame tu amor. Y si dices lo que no, mi corazón llorará. Y si dices sí que sí, mi vida se alegrará. Y es por eso que mi corazón te pide amor. Nuestro amor se ha marchitado. Si no supiste amarme, no eres sincera. ¿Cómo quieres entonces que y no te lamentes si con el tiempo sientes la ausencia de mi cariño? Ya de tu promesa no queda nada, tú te aburres.
So just to comment a little bit as we're going, Jose, I agree with Tom's comments. I remember you submitted another song from this recording before, and like the performances are incredible, and the job that you're doing, I think, is great. I like Tom's comment on here about like a sense of space that you would expect from a live performance. Reverb could tie things together more. Yeah, so like putting things in a common space, a common room, like we talked earlier about, like, Ocean Wave Studios room, or like any of the IK multimedia rooms, or even Deverb room and Pro Tools, whatever stock thing you have. If you have a good sounding room in there, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Just that they have a common space that they're in, and giving it a more of a live sense. I'm hearing a lot of kick drum in this. The guitar seems a little loud, and like what Laban says on here, the vocal disappears hit a bit here. I think that probably just some more automation to like bring focus to different elements, especially with a 9-minute song, to kind of keep interest going as you move on. I think will help. I'm just going to skip forward here. Let's check out another section.
con cariño. Rico. Cuánto tiempo esperé que vuelvas a mí. Ahora que te tengo aquí, comienzo a vivir. Nunca pude encontrar a alguien como tú. Y ahora que a mi lado estás,
I hear just a little bit of resonance in that upper, 4K-ish range to watch out for. One thing that can help too is if you imagine if there's video along with this, how would you make it feel like a natural sounding performance? And right now, like those background vocals feel a little loud and thick to me. If I was looking at this from the audience perspective, I wouldn't expect to hear that vocal feel as close. And, for example, if I move closer to my mic without just talking about proximity effect, you hear more of that stuff versus if I'm away, I'm a little bit thinner. Same thing, like if we're in the room talking to each other, think about how things sound in relation to you when you're just in a room with them. Not that this person wouldn't be through a PA and all that stuff, but I wouldn't expect to feel like that vocal is as close. And overall, just more definition from part to part, and just adding some more focus to the whole thing. Really great video for you to watch is the Snarky Puppy stuff. The stereo mix is out now. From that, you can watch the production and the recording of it, but the stereo mix is out now, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that Nick Hard deals with as he's going through that video. He's got, 20 players in a room with I think it was 128 inputs, 50 microphones on the floor. This is a small room, and he had to deal with all that stuff in the mix and just keeping definition, cutting down on bleed, and making things feel like a record, but also feel live. There's a whole thing on it that might be useful in there. But overall, I think that this is all sounding really awesome. I just want to feel like it's a little bit more live since it is from a concert, live performance kind of deal. Let's just see if you got some crowd ambience or room at the end here.
¡Qué bonito! ¡Qué bonito!
That crowd needs to give the band some love. There's nothing there, no audience. So, everything feels very direct, and we don't have any room or any of that stuff. But I think that the recording was actually pretty good. So, you could probably push it a little bit further. Good luck with that. I hope that it helps. Let's go on to Palisades with an upside down A. Very, very chic. All right. Searching. Palisades, I can't find your song based on your name. Did you put it up here? I'm sure that you did, and I'm missing it. So if you could help me out and let me know the name of your song. I don't see it. Palisades, let me know the name of your song. We'll hit it next. Let's go on to C Rose. Psychoacoustics. That's right, Kenneth. Awesome. Everybody get some psychoacoustics in your life. All right, C Rose, here we go.
Vaisseau spatial, je suis une rose parmi les sortes, mais je veux plus m'en sortir. Mon cou pendu à la corde de mon vaisseau spatial. Je suis une rose parmi les sortes, mais je veux plus m'en sortir. Mon cou pendu à la corde de mon vaisseau spatial. Sortir.
Okay, stand by. I'm gonna see if I can show you guys something. I am pulling up decibel as a meter on here. All right, sorry, you gotta give me a second to arrange this. So I'm pulling up a decibel meter. This is the phase scope from decibel. And I want to explain what I'm hearing with some of the my comments about things being too wide. So in the beginning here, let's take a listen and watch.
Les sortes, mais je veux plus m'en sortir. Mon cou pendu à la corde de mon vaisseau spatial. Je suis une rose parmi les sortes, mais je veux plus m'en sortir.
Okay, so we're watching the bottom. You guys can't see my mouse pointer, but we're watching the bottom dot on this balance meter. So along with like the correlation on the side, when those things move to negative values, we're going out of phase. So the widening is so wide on this that we're literally, the mix is going out of phase, and that's the thing that I've heard on so many today. You guys all have access to decibel, and it can kind of tell you about those things and warn you about them. But that's the stuff that's causing the unpleasant sound sensations. That's usually what's happening as what you're seeing on this meter. Now, leading up to the hi-hat coming in, this feels freaking awesome, and I love it. C Rose, I love it. Alexandra, this is awesome. This track is awesome. The production's awesome. When the hi-hat comes in, I was like fully in, fully immersed, fully all about this. And then the hi-hat comes in around here. This one that's panning around a little bit. So just the volume of that guy, and it's kind of panning but sitting a little outside of the left speaker on it. The volume of it takes me out of the vocal and out of the soundscape that you set up and everything. Like all I was thinking was like, oh, maybe the vocal's a little overcompressed, but this feels amazing up to that point. At that point, the balances start getting a little weird to me. So that hi-hat, I feel like it's telling me that it's too important based on like its volume, right? Compared to the other elements in the mix. So I would just watch for that. Like as you're going through the song, always be asking, and maybe you did, and this is your choice, and like awesome, and subjective, right? Like I am no one to tell you how to change your song or anything like that. But just like my experience was that it pulled me out of the vocal and out of this experience I was having. That was amazing up to like this moment where this thing came in. So your volume tells the listener what is the most important element to listen to. And as it's going along, I know it's like an EDM style thing, and that has different, it's not a pop song. I get all of that stuff, but I was like glued in a space and in an environment and in a whole soundscape that you had built that was completely captivating, and then the hi-hat just distracted me a little bit. So going along, there's some other things that pop up balance-wise like that, and I just want to listen to like the very end of the song here. I love all the production tricks you're doing. I think it's great. I love like there's a lot of depth in this mix, and that feels awesome. Just watch out for the balance things, I think, and watch out for the stereo widening stuff. I felt like there was one other thing that said, oh yeah, sorry, the bottom end of the track, because it's an EDM feeling thing. I feel like we're missing a little bit of heft underneath it, a little bit of sub information, a little bit of punch, that kind of stuff. If you don't have a sub, headphones are great for this kind of thing, but I feel like we're missing like the very bottom octave of it. But man, I think like there's so much good stuff happening in this. Just as you're going, move with intention and be thinking about like, what is the most important thing to the listener right now? What journey do I want to take them on? And ride the faders, put your fingers on faders, and build in some automation stuff, and just keep painting on the canvas as you are already. But overall, I think it's amazing. And the decibel thing, it's a useful, I'm not saying mix with the meter, but I am saying like this is a useful tool to use. So check it out. You guys all have it. Okay, moving on here. I hope that's useful. I'd love, again, that would totally be on the playlist. I'd love to hear another version. Dancing Dogs is next. Here we go. From Midge. Here we go. Sorry, my Stream Deck. So I was just showing the correlation thing on decibel again. You can kind of see that it was dipping down. I'll do this again since my microphone was muted like a dope. Um, Check this out right here. So I'm just watching as that kind of goes down and confirms what I'm hearing. But you just got to watch out for the polarity differences. I'm sorry I'm harping on this, and that I was harping on it with a muted microphone. But that's something to just kind of listen for, just as we're going here. Whenever that instrument went away, polarity felt normal to me, and all that. So check it out on that instrument. Here we go. Oh, I'm getting tired, Kenneth says. Sorry. All right. There we go. Mutomatic to the rescue. That's right. I need some Mutomatic. So about the snare. So you said in the comments, it felt like it was missing a bit of punch. I agreed with you until we got to this section. And then when we got here, the snare felt like it had a really good amount of punch, and I liked the brightness of it. Before that, I felt like it was a little dull. So what I was saying was like you've got a cool scene change happening here. It feels really good. And we can do things like automate EQ and make sure that the snare feels good in the earlier section and doesn't just shine in this one part. So I agree with you until we got here. Now I think the snare sounds awesome. So cool. Here we go. Let's keep on moving. Victor, I did a whole plugin episode on Mutamatic. I even had to put tape on my face, and I think I was wearing the shirt too. But yeah, I love Mutamatic. I have to figure out how to get it integrated with OBS, but that's a great idea. Also, I can't tie it to the transport of Mixtank. If you know how to do that, let me know, because that would solve all my issues. This is actually like a very stressful thing in my life, so I'd appreciate it. All right, here we go. Yeah, it's interesting, Midge. The snare has a lot more presence here, and then when we get to this next section, it goes back to being a little muted. So this can be a compression thing too. The stereo bus compressor might be clamping off the transient, and we're getting less of that initial attack, which would give us the brightness of it. So yeah, maybe check out your stereo bus compressor. And then I'm just going to check out the ending here. Here we go. Yeah, maybe some balance stuff in there. The snare actually felt like it had presence again in this section, so I don't know what happened scene change wise there, but one more time for balance stuff. Things actually feel a little unglued to me in this section, so maybe just work on balances. Watch out for whatever compression's doing. I agree with a lot of Sonic Science Lab's comments in here. The bass at the end feels a little low to me. It feels like elements are sticking out and like there's no cohesion between everything. So check out for some of that stuff and maybe just do some more automation as it goes along. Also feel a bit more heavy kick and with a little more meat snare. Yeah, I agree with Sonic about the drum sounds as well. So I think Sonic nailed it. The phase issues thing he covered as well. And I hope that helps. If you go along, again, would love to hear another version of the song. Hope that helps. Sorry about my mic muting thing. I think I said everything that I said the first time around. All right, we got two more. One from Deficiency is next. Here we go. I think that this one's going to be a good example of something balance-wise with the drums. So one, I love the vibe already. This is really cool. The kick drum, this feels like a program thing to me. It feels like a distant hi-hat in a room, a very upfront, close, loud kick drum, and a muted snare drum behind it. So I don't feel like I feel three different depths of drums and three different volumes, balance-wise, three tonalities. So let's just listen for that really quick. So I've got a lot of presence on the kick drum, a lot of snap, but not that in the snare drum. And then the distant hi-hat thing makes it feel like three different recordings of the drum set, different elements recorded at different times, if you will, even with like moved microphones. So I'd look for a little cohesion there. Here we go. Again, you can just kind of see how things like just kind of spread out and go crazy on the meter there. Watch out for phase stuff. Everybody that submitted to mix is a pro member, so I know you guys have decibel. This is the phase scope in decibel. You can kind of check for some of that stuff. Another thing too with the widening thing. Sorry, this has been such a theme today, but a lot of times you'll feel like you need a widener if your speakers are too close to each other. So, there's all kinds of things on the internet about speaker placement. My preference is that I sit a little bit inside of the equilateral triangle, just a hair inside of where the apex of that triangle would be. It would be like right at the back of my head. So I'm a little inside of it because I like having a wider stereo image, which is all a preference thing as well. But if you've got your, speakers really, really close in and you're behind the apex of the triangle, that would give you the sensation that everything's mono and you want to spread things out and could potentially do over spatialization with stereo width controls and all that. If you've got your speakers too far apart, then you would feel like everything is always spread out too far and you would be panning things in the middle all the time. So speaker placement is very, very important. Listen to songs that you know really well. And make sure that they, kind of translate, and where your speaker placement is respectful of the stereo image that you like and expect to hear as well. When I hear the over widening thing, it makes me think that the speakers are too close to each other, which, just check it out. Make sure that they're equidistant from you, from your ears. Mine, get the tape measure out. I measure off the front wall and make sure they're the same distance from the front wall, same distance from the tweeter to my ear on both sides. And I'm, kind of basically where I've placed them. Again, I like just being a little inside of the triangle. Not everybody likes that, and it becomes preference, and you have to play with it. Move them by inches, move your chair back and forth to kind of feel what feels good. But yeah, just to like add a little bit more insight, because I keep on harping on this phase thing, that can be a thing that causes that. I'm not saying that is your thing that's like possibly causing that deficiency, but just wanted to make that point. So, because I'm a broken record about this phase thing. Here we go. Yes, some people like that new age hyperspace sound. That's right. All right, here we go. So some of the drum transients are escaping what sounds like a drum compressor on there. So I'd say watch out for the drum compression. Once in a while, like the kick feels like it's not being grabbed by it, but then the snare gets grabbed, but sometimes the kick is grabbed. I'll just play this section again to point that out. Like the beater attack of that kick is sticking out in front of the mix to me. And based on the decisions that you made with the sound field and verb choices and balances and all that, that feels like it's escaping your intentionality and it's just kind of like poking out of the mix. So I'd watch for that high attack on the beater of the kick drum, because it does give the perception that it's closer to me while you have all of this beautiful swirling stuff happening around it too. Here we go. So balancing here, we have these big crashes going on, and they're like there to emphasize and bring some energy and all that stuff, but they feel distant and quiet. So bring those guys up if we want to, explode the section. Sounds like I need a new needle for my Chrome player. I love the vinyl stuff. One comment on the vinyl popping thing. That's awesome. It's aesthetic, totally cool. What would happen if you put that on some of the individual instruments as an insert? I think like the Isotope one, the vinyl thing that they have, I think you can blend it in like a mix, and you can use it to kind of degrade the actual sound of it. So we have this like vinyl sound over top, but then we have this hi-fi guitar that exists with it. Like in this section here, I think your tone and everything is beautiful. So the vinyl popping gives us this like texture and this feeling of like signal dipping in and out, but then we have perfect quality instruments underneath that layer that is on top of it. And I think it would feel more authentic if it was actually across like the instrument bus or something like that, where it was actually physically degrading the sound of it. That would sound really neat, like dropouts, you know. That it would be more convincing to me, and it would add a really neat texture. But just aesthetic, and it's all opinion. I hope that helps. I think balances and just kind of listening and making sure that instruments sound cohesive together, like they were part of the same drum set. Unless your intention is to go for something wildly different like that, then kudos, and like that's valid and all that. So not to backpedal too much, but yeah, I think like watching for cohesive spaces, watch the balances, again, make sure that you're taking the listener on the journey that you mean to and all that, and you're telling them what's the important thing to listen to in each section. A lot of times on songs, I will just work on a section for a very long time, and I'll, you know, just automate that one section, and then I'll move on. Like I might deal with the verse and make sure that the verse feels great, then loop the chorus, and I might, you know, throw my automation in the trim mode or something and set that balance, and then write the automation for that part, and then go back and make sure that the transitions between those feel good. Just automation is your friend, and always be, you know, intentionally telling the listener what it is that they should be focusing on. Great job though, and thanks for submitting. I think this is your second track that I've gotten a review on here, and love your stuff, so keep it coming. Awesome. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, that might be cool. Deficiency says maybe I can try applying it to the orchestral section. Yeah, that's awesome. I considered applying the specific instruments. None of it sounded like I wanted. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Very cool. Okay, let's see what our next one is. Crop Tall, I skipped over you earlier, so let's hit yours before we get out of here. Cool. Nice. Oh, third song. That's great. Nice. Yeah, coolest username. Award goes to you. Deficiency in the sea. Deficiency. Okay, Crop Tall, variation 4, electronic. Here we go. So this is awesome. That was a whole journey, and I agree with a lot of what Sonic Science Lab wrote on here. The the yeah, like the chat as well. I agree with a lot of what he put on here, but there's moments where I think it almost gets into a philosophical question about like Sonic says, "Watch out for those bird-like sounds. They pop out a little too much." So I agree that they felt a little loud, but then at the same time, against what or says who, kind of a thing, because this is totally a soundscape track, right? Like that. It's like when you do sound effects for a movie. Like if you go into a theater, I mean, how often are the explosions way too freaking loud? But it's awesome and it's soundscape. So I'm like hesitant to say any of that stuff. I had those thoughts, but I think it's all of it is intentional. Nothing like seems like it escaped you. So I don't know if I'd say it's too loud. I think you're taking chances and doing some stuff that's crazy. And guitar examples I love about like that kind of stuff is like anything Jack White. The guitar solos are always way loud, like so loud, but it's always intentional, and that's exactly what he wants to be doing, is melting your face off with that guitar solo. If you were listening in the balance, you'd be like, "Oh, I think that's a little too loud. It's more than featured. It's just too loud." But it's freaking awesome. So I don't know if I'd say any of that. I think it's up to you at that point. There is a point again of diminishing return where like you go too far and suddenly it's distracting and it takes you out of the song. But I think that that's up for you to decide, and I think that you're certainly capable, based on the rest of what's going on in this mix, to say whether or not you feel like something is done for effect or if it's too loud and all of that. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say it. I won't do it. I refuse. Yeah, the only other thing, like, I agreed with his comment about the kick and the bass relationship. That's, obviously it's like this is a lot of what this music is. It's like that kick and bass relationship is like 100% of like you get that right, and then it's hard to mess anything else up sometimes. The bass feeling too boomy, and him talking about like translation of small speakers. I would agree that there's not a lot of harmonic content to the sine wave type bass that you have going on. Maybe a little bit of saturation. Spice Rack is awesome for this. Would be cool to just kind of add some mid-range to it, just so that there is some content if you go on a speaker that doesn't have any, real reproduction below 100 or something like that, or at least not in, a featured way. Just to keep that bass consistent and, that it's audible on smaller systems. I think that he's right about that. I didn't hear too much of the spatial, like, over phasing stuff on this. I think it's cool. Yeah, the low end being a little too muddy, build up around 80 hertz. Totally agree with Tom. Like, that's all super useful stuff. And I love all of this. So, awesome job, Croptel. And sorry I missed you earlier. Glad that you pointed out in the chat and I got to it, because it's killer. Yeah, what do you guys think about what I was going on about the things being too loud? Well, let me know. Oh yeah, Palisades. Sorry, before we get out of here, we got to check out Palisades. I promised. I didn't find your song yet though. Did you put what the name of the song is? If you're in the chat, tell me. Speak now. Yeah, this track is Palisades. What's the name of the track? Uh-oh. Palisade said, I love Decibel. Pretty sure I hit -6 LUFS. Hopefully not brick walled it to hell. All right. Some people wear that as a badge of honor. Just commenting on my track. Hope that'll find you. Let's see. Konga's song is called Sweat. Got it. All right. Let's see. Sweat. I found it. Here we go. Everybody watch your speakers. He said it's at -6. Awesome, man. Super cool. And I got a chance to use my strobe lights, so I'm excited. Okay. So you are wondering about the sub bass and your compression and limiting. So are you pushing it too hard? It's EDM. It's part of the style, it's part of the sound. What you are losing when you do that is some of the punch. So that kick drum, it still feels good, but it could like be more smacking, be a little bit harder. Luca Predolesi is a great, great mentor on the site for this style of music, and he's got a track on there with Major Lazer. If you're unaware of that or you haven't seen it, great tips in that. The sub bass thing, it feels a little stereo to me. Like there's a lot of low end on the sides, and that happens at a couple moments throughout the song. There's a couple moments that the low end on just the sides felt like it was a little big. You could try high passing the sides a bit. That's going to buy you a little bit more headroom too, so you wouldn't be smacking the limiter quite as hard. But the things that you lose when you push that hard are low end punch, and generally like things will get brighter. But if it feels good, it is good, and don't mix with the meter, even though we make a pretty sweet meter. Um, uh, so yeah, I just make it feel good. The vocals feel like they have a little bit too much compression on and all that stuff, but it's just a vocal chop sample thing too, so that could be a texture and a vibe. I think it's a really fun listen, and it still feels really good where it is. You might not be able to have a lot of that sub bass on smaller speakers as well, because there's not a lot of content other than like the sine wave kind of bass that's happening. So maybe it needs some more harmonics up top. Saturation's great for that. You could do it in parallel so you don't, muddy up the bottom end that you already have going. I dig the side chaining stuff that you have. Make sure the timing on the side chain is feeling good and it's helping the groove. The release time is set to a musical interval. It feels like it's like pumping in the right way and not just like loosely pumping just to have a sidechain compressor on there. It should be like a good note value that's going to help drive the groove forward. But it feels awesome and the production's awesome. I think you did a cool job on this. There's a lot of really fun moments. There's a clock slowing down. The drops aren't obvious. There's a lot of awesome stuff in there. So I hope that that's useful. Me blabbering into a microphone and a camera, because I think that the track's really awesome. Yeah, and the compression limiting thing, like, you're just gonna lose punch if you push it too hard. So try loosening it. Wonderful thing in digital is we can do save as and then play with these kinds of things, and then use decibel to match the two versions. So try loosening all that stuff up and then volume match your two versions, turn the louder one down and play them side by side and see which one feels better. Again, one of the whole reasons for Fab and Guillaume making Decibel was that, with streaming, they're turning you down anyway. So smashing your dynamics isn't going to help you be louder than the next guy. It's just going to smash your dynamics. But that being said, this type of music has a certain dynamic range to it, and you have to go after that. That's if you want to. There's no rules, but it helps to know what that is and be aware of it. And if you're going for that sound, then maybe you want to use the guideline or like use decibel to help you establish that aesthetic. So guys, I think that is going to do it for today. Thank you for everybody who tuned in, who submitted mixes. You guys are amazing. Again, don't forget that we have nice. Glad it's helpful, Palisades. Don't forget that we have a mix fix on Friday with Fab DuPont mixing a pro member track. That's going to be epic. Next Monday, I'll be here for the first live streamed episode of the Great Big Plugin Show. We'll be taking a look at Spice Rack, which all of you guys have right now. Go get it, download it, play with it. All of you pro members that are in the chat. I think you're all pro members, but yeah. And it's awesome to see you guys here. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for everybody that's around all the time, and for everybody viewing for the first time. Hope you had fun here today and that you find Mixtank useful. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you so much. All right. I got to find my button. Thanks for watching. See ya.